The baby shower was perfect. I'd spent weeks planning every detail. The soft pink decorations, the elegant floral centerpieces, the custom cake with delicate sugar flowers. My best friend Melissa was glowing in her white maternity dress, surrounded by friends and family, opening gifts and laughing at all the tiny clothes and baby supplies. Then someone made a joke. I didn't even remember who it was or exactly what they said. Something about the mystery father, about how the baby was going to have her mom's beautiful eyes. Everyone laughed, including Melissa. She looked around the room, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly, and smiled. You know what? I think it's time everyone knew the truth about who the father is. The room got quiet. I was standing next to her, having just handed her another gift to open. I smiled at her, thinking she was finally going to reveal who this mystery man was that she'd been so secretive about for the past 7 months. The father, she said, looking directly at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, is sitting right over there. She pointed across the room. My eyes followed her finger. She was pointing at my husband, Derek, who was sitting in the back near the food table, holding a plate of appetizers. His face went completely white. And that's when I knew my entire life had been a lie. My name is Amy, and this is the story of how the two people I loved most in the world conspired to destroy me in the most unimaginable way possible. I met Melissa during our freshman year of college. We were roommates, randomly assigned, and we clicked instantly. She was outgoing and fun. I was more reserved and studious, and somehow we balanced each other perfectly. We did everything together, studied, partied, traveled, cried over breakups, celebrated successes. She was more than my best friend. She was my sister. We stayed close after college. When I moved back to our hometown for a marketing job, Melissa moved back too. We got an apartment together, went to yoga classes, had weekly brunches, and talked every single day. She knew everything about me, and I thought I knew everything about her. I met Derek through work when I was 25. He was a software developer at a company that contracted with mine, and we met during a project collaboration. He was smart, funny, stable, exactly the kind of guy I'd always wanted. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, and of course, Melissa was the first person I told. I'm so happy for you, she screamed, hugging me tight. You deserve this. Derek is amazing. She helped me plan the entire wedding. She was my maid of honor, gave a beautiful speech about friendship and soulmates, and cried during our first dance. In the photos from that day, she's standing right beside me, beaming with happiness. Derek and Melissa got along great, which I loved. They'd chat at parties, joke around during group dinners, and she'd text him sometimes to ask about birthday gift ideas for me or to coordinate surprise plans. I thought it was wonderful that my husband and best friend liked each other. It made me feel like my life was perfectly aligned. Looking back at those early years of my marriage, I can see moments that should have made me suspicious. But when you trust people completely, you don't look for signs of betrayal. You just see what you want to see. Derek and I started trying to have a baby about 3 years into our marriage. I was 29, he was 31, and we both wanted kids. We figured it would happen quickly. We were young and healthy, and everyone in both our families had kids. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. At first, it wasn't concerning. We knew it could take time. But after a year of trying, we started to worry. After 18 months, we went to see a fertility specialist. The tests were extensive and invasive and emotionally exhausting. They checked everything, my eggs, my uterus, Derek's sperm count, his motility, everything. And every test came back ... normal. There was no medical reason we couldn't conceive. It was unexplained infertility, which somehow felt worse than having a clear diagnosis. We tried everything. Tracking my cycle down to the hour, changing our diets, reducing stress, taking supplements. We tried 3 rounds of IUI intrauterine insemination. All failed. We were just starting to discuss IVF, which was expensive and emotionally daunting, when our doctor suggested we take a break. Sometimes the stress of trying is what's preventing conception, she said gently. Take a few months off. Focus on enjoying your marriage. Stop thinking about it so much. So we did, or at least I thought we did. Throughout this entire 2-year struggle, Melissa was my rock. She came to doctor's appointments with me when Derek had to work. She held me while I cried after negative pregnancy tests. She researched alternative treatments and sent me articles about success stories. She listened to me talk for hours about my fears that I'd never be a mother, that something was fundamentally broken in me. You're going to be an amazing mom, she'd tell me, rubbing my back while I sobbed. It's going to happen. I know it is. Derek seemed supportive too, but in a more distant way. He'd hug me after bad news, tell me it would be okay, but he didn't seem as devastated as I was by each failure. I told myself that men just process things differently, that he was trying to be strong for me. Maybe it's just not meant to be right now, he'd say. We can keep trying, or we can look into adoption. Or we can just focus on being happy together. His lack of urgency frustrated me sometimes, but I tried to be understanding. Not everyone obsesses over having kids the way I was obsessing. I was probably putting too much pressure on both of us. About 6 months into our break from actively trying to conceive, Melissa asked me to meet her for coffee. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her cup and avoiding eye contact. I have something to tell you, she finally said, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it. My stomach dropped. Was she sick? Moving away? In trouble? I'm pregnant, she blurted out. I sat there, stunned. Melissa wasn't even dating anyone. At least, she hadn't mentioned anyone. We talked every day, and she hadn't said a word about seeing someone seriously. Oh my God. I managed. Wow. I didn't even know you were seeing someone. It's complicated, she said, looking down. The father, ... He's not going to be involved. It was a mistake, a one-time thing, and he's not interested in being a dad. So I'm going to do this alone. Despite my own pain and jealousy, and yes, I felt both immediately, I hugged her. I'm here for you, whatever you need. You're going to be an amazing mom. Are you sure you're okay with this? She asked, tears in her eyes. I know how hard you and Derek have been trying, and I feel terrible that I'm pregnant when you don't, I interrupted. This isn't a competition. I'm happy for you. Really, I was lying, at least partially. I was happy for her, but I was also devastated for myself. It felt cosmically unfair that she could get pregnant from a one-time mistake while I'd been trying desperately for 2 years with my husband and had nothing to show for it. But she was my best friend, and she needed my support. So I swallowed my pain and showed up for her. Over the next 7 months, I did everything a best friend should. I went to doctor's appointments with her. I helped her shop for baby clothes and nursery furniture. I threw her a gender reveal party, it's a girl, and pretended to be thrilled while my heart was breaking. Derek seemed oddly interested in Melissa's pregnancy too. He'd ask detailed questions about her appointments, about how she was feeling, about what the doctors were saying. I thought he was just being supportive, maybe trying to learn about pregnancy for when it finally happened for us. It's good practice, he said once, after asking Melissa about her morning sickness symptoms. Now I'll know what to expect when you're pregnant. That comment made me cry later. Alone in our bedroom, when I was pregnant, not if, when. It felt like he still had faith, which gave me hope. Melissa leaned on me heavily throughout her pregnancy. She said she didn't have family support, her parents were disappointed in her for getting pregnant outside of marriage, and her sister lived across the country. So I stepped up. I was at her apartment constantly, bringing her food, helping her assemble baby gear, keeping her company. Derek sometimes came with me on these visits, helping move heavy furniture or install the car seat. Melissa would joke about how lucky she was to have us, how we were going to be the baby's honorary aunt and uncle. This baby is so loved already, she'd say, her hand on her belly. She's going to have the best godparents. I should have questioned why Derek was so involved. Why he seemed to know so much about Melissa's pregnancy timeline and symptoms. Why he volunteered to help her with things even when I didn't ask him to. Why he sometimes came home later than expected and mentioned he'd stop by Melissa's to help her with something. But I didn't question any of it because I trusted them both completely. Melissa was my best friend. Derek was my husband. The idea that they could be betraying me never even crossed my mind. About a month before Melissa's due date, I decided to throw her a baby shower. She was still being cagey about the father, telling everyone he was out of the picture and she was doing this alone. Some people gossiped about it, speculated about who it might be, but Melissa shut down every question. It doesn't matter who he is, she'd say firmly. He's not involved, and that's all anyone needs to know. I defended her privacy fiercely. She'll tell us when she's ready, I'd say to anyone who asked me for details. Right now, she needs our support, not our judgment. I spent weeks planning the perfect shower. I rented a beautiful event space, chose an elegant pink and white theme, ordered custom decorations. I made a registry for her at 3 different stores and sent it out with the invitations. I ordered a stunning cake from the best bakery in town. I put together party games and favors and a photo backdrop. Derek helped me carry all the supplies to the venue the morning of the shower. We spent hours decorating, hanging balloons and streamers, setting up the gift table, arranging chairs. He seemed distracted, quieter than usual. You? Okay? I asked as we hung a banner that said, "Welcome, baby girl." "Yeah, just tired," he said. "This looks great, though. Melissa's going to love it." Looking back, I wonder if he had any idea what was about to happen. If Melissa had warned him what she was planning to do, or if he was as blindsided as I was. The shower started at 2 in the afternoon. Guests arrived bearing gifts and compliments about the decorations. Melissa showed up looking radiant in a white maternity dress that I'd helped her pick out. She hugged me tight. "Thank you so much for doing all this," she whispered. "You're the best friend anyone could ask for." I felt a rush of love for her. Despite my own struggles and jealousy, I was genuinely happy to celebrate her. She was about to become a mother, and I was honored to be part of this moment. The shower went perfectly. We played game is guessing baby food flavors, measuring Melissa's belly with toilet paper, creating funny onesie designs with fabric markers. Everyone laughed and chatted and celebrated. I took dozens of photos, wanting to capture every moment for Melissa. Derek stayed in the back, talking to a few of the male guests who'd been invited, Melissa's brother, a couple of male friends, some of the partners of female guests. I noticed him checking his phone more than usual, looking nervous, but I was too busy hosting to think much about it. Then came time for Melissa to open gifts. Everyone gathered around as she sat in the specially decorated chair I'd set up for her, surrounded by presents. I stood next to her, handing her gifts and taking notes about who gave what so she could write thank you cards later. She opened adorable outfits, practical items like diapers and bottles, bigger gifts like a stroller and a high chair. Everyone ooped, N-A-T, appropriately. The atmosphere was joyful and warm. That's when someone, I think it was Melissa's aunt, made a comment about the father. "That baby is going to be so beautiful. Too bad Daddy isn't here to celebrate with us." A few people laughed uncomfortably. It was an awkward subject that most people had been avoiding. Then Melissa laughed too. Not uncomfortably, but genuinely. Like something was funny. She looked around the room, making eye contact with several people, and then her eyes landed on me. "You know," she said, her voice carrying across the now quiet room. "I think it's time everyone knew the truth." I smiled at her encouragingly, thinking she was finally going to share who the father was. Good for her, I thought. She doesn't have to keep this secret anymore. "The father of my baby," she continued, her hand resting on her belly, that strange smile still on her face, "is actually here at the shower." Excited murmurs went through the crowd. People started looking around, trying to figure out who it might be. I was excited too. Was it one of the male guests? Had she been secretly dating someone we all knew? "He's sitting right there," she said, and pointed. Her finger was aimed directly at Derek. For a few seconds, my brain couldn't process what was happening. I looked at Derek. He'd stood up from his chair, his face drained of all color. People were looking between him and Melissa, confusion on their faces. Then Melissa spoke again, louder this time. "Derek is my baby's father. We've been together for 2 years. The room exploded into shocked gasps and exclamations. I stood there, frozen, the gift I'd been holding slipping from my hands and hitting the floor. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. This had to be a joke. A terrible, cruel joke. Melissa would start laughing any second and say she was kidding. Derek would look confused and deny it. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But Melissa wasn't laughing. She was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before. Triumphant, almost gleeful. And Derek wasn't denying anything. He was just standing there, looking like he might throw up. "Amy?" Someone was saying my name. My friend Jessica was next to me, her hand on my arm. "Amy, are you okay?" I couldn't answer. I was staring at Melissa, my best friend of 15 years, pregnant with what she was claiming was my husband's baby. "Why would you?" I started to say, but my voice came out as a whisper. I tried again, louder. "Why would you say that?" "Because it's true," Melissa said simply. "Derek and I have been having an affair for over 2 years. This is his baby." I thought everyone should know. People were standing up now, some moving toward me, some toward the door. The festive atmosphere had completely evaporated, replaced by shock and horror and secondhand embarrassment. I finally looked at Derek. "Is this true?" He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then, quietly, he said, "Yes." That single word destroyed everything. My marriage, my friendship, my sense of reality, everything I thought I knew about my life and the people in it. I don't remember much of what happened next. I know I ran out of the venue. I know Jessica followed me, trying to comfort me while I hyperventilated in the parking lot. I know I could hear raised voices inside, people yelling at Melissa and Derek, demanding explanations, expressing their outrage. I know that the beautiful baby shower I'd spent weeks planning and hundreds of dollars organizing had imploded into the worst moment of my life. Jessica drove me home because I was shaking too badly to drive. We sat in my living room, the home I shared with Derek, where apparently he'd been lying to me for 2 years, and I tried to piece together what had just happened. She did that on purpose, Jessica said, her voice full of anger. She wanted to humiliate you in front of everyone. She could have told you privately, but she chose to do it like that. She was right. Melissa had orchestrated that reveal carefully. She'd waited until the baby shower, until I was surrounded by friends and family, until I just finished telling everyone how close we were and how excited I was to be her baby's godmother. My phone started ringing. Derek, I declined the call. He called again and again. I turned off my phone. Then people started showing up at my door. My mom crying and furious. My sister wanting to make sure I was okay. Friends from the shower offering support and disbelief. Everyone wanted to know if I'd had any idea, if there had been signs, how long it had been going on. I didn't have answers. I'd been completely blindsided. Derek came home around 7 that evening. Jessica was still there, and she positioned herself between us like a guard dog. "Get out," she told him. "I need to talk to Amy," he said. "You need to leave," Jessica repeated. Now, I found my voice. "It's okay, Jess. I need to hear this." Jessica reluctantly went to wait in the kitchen, and Derek and I sat on opposite ends of our couch, the couch we'd picked out together, where we'd watched countless movies and talked about our future children. "I'm so sorry," he started. "Don't." I cut him off. "Just tell me the truth. All of it." What Derek told me that night was somehow worse than what Melissa had revealed at the shower. The affair had started about 2 years ago. Shortly after we'd begun our fertility struggles, Melissa had come over one evening when I was out of town for work. Derek was feeling stressed about the fertility stuff, and Melissa was there, understanding and supportive, and it just happened. Except it didn't just happen once. It kept happening. Regular meets when I thought Melissa and I were just being supportive friends and Derek was working late or at the gym. Stolen moments when I was in the shower or at the grocery store, and one or both of them would make an excuse to see each other. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. They'd been careless, not using protection consistently. Both of them apparently not thinking about or not caring about the consequences. When Melissa realized she was pregnant, she'd told Derek they'd discussed their options. And here's the part that broke me even more. Derek had wanted her to keep the baby. He was excited about it. "But you told me you were okay with not having kids right away," I said, my voice hollow. "You said we could take a break from trying. I was excited about having a kid," he said quietly. "Just not with you." Those words hit me like a physical blow. Not with me. After 2 years of trying, of putting my body through medical procedures, of crying month after month when I wasn't pregnant, he hadn't really wanted to have a baby with me. He'd wanted to have one with Melissa. "Did you..." I could barely ask the question, "Did you do something to make sure I wouldn't get pregnant?" He wouldn't look at me. That's when I knew. "What did you do?" I demanded. "The prenatal vitamins you were taking," he said finally. "I might have replaced them with regular vitamins. Not every time. Just sometimes. I thought if it took longer for you to get pregnant, I'd have time to figure things out. I felt sick. The vitamins I'd been taking religiously, thinking I was optimizing my body for pregnancy, had been sabotaged by my own husband and the IUI attempts." I asked, my voice shaking. "Were those real? I didn't always do what I was supposed to do before the procedures," he admitted. "The things that were supposed to improve success rates. I'm so sorry, Amy. I didn't know what to do. I was in love with Melissa, but I didn't want to hurt you. So he'd let me believe something was wrong with me. He'd let me go through the emotional torture of infertility. Let me blame myself. Let me cry myself to sleep wondering what was broken inside me, all while he was actively sabotaging our attempts to conceive and getting my best friend pregnant. Why didn't you just leave me?" I asked. "If you wanted to be with her, why string me along?" "I don't know," he said, and he was crying now. "I was scared, confused. I loved you both. I didn't want to lose either of you, so he decided to have both of us. I'm so sorry." I stood up. "I want you out of this house tonight. Take whatever you need. I'll have a lawyer contact you about the divorce. Amy, please get out." 2 days later, Melissa showed up at my door. I almost didn't let her in, but I needed to understand why. Why had she done this? How had my best friend, the person I'd trusted more than anyone, betrayed me so completely? She sat in my living room, her hand on her pregnant belly, carrying my husband's child, and tried to explain, I've always been jealous of you, she said. Ever since college. You had everything so together. Good grades, good job, good life. And then you got Derek, and he was perfect, and I just thought, I wanted what you had. So you decided to take it, I asked, my voice cold. It wasn't like that, she insisted. Derek and I we connected. He understood me in ways that don't, I interrupted. Don't try to romanticize this. You slept with my husband. You got pregnant with his baby. You let me support you through your entire pregnancy while lying to my face every single day. You let me throw you a baby shower. And then you revealed everything in the cruelest way possible. I know, she said, and she had the audacity to start crying. I know it was wrong, but I needed people to know. I needed you to know. I'm tired of hiding. You could have told me privately. You could have given me the dignity of finding out in private. You never would have believed me, she said. You trusted Derek too much. You trusted both of us too much. I needed to say it in front of witnesses so you couldn't deny it or let him talk his way out of it. There was logic to that, as twisted as it was. If she'd told me privately, I probably would have confronted Derek, and he might have convinced me she was lying, that she was unstable, that she was making it up for attention. By revealing it publicly, she'd forced the truth into the open in a way that couldn't be denied. But the cruelty of it, doing it at her baby shower, the shower I'd organized in front of all our friends and family, that wasn't about truth. That was about hurting me. Did you ever actually care about me? I asked. Or was our entire friendship a lie? I cared about you, she said. I do care about you. You're my best friend. I'm not your friend, I said flatly. Friends don't do what you did. Get out of my house. She stood up slowly, her hand supporting her back. At 8 months pregnant, she moved carefully. Part of me, the part that had spent months helping her and caring about her pregnancy, almost felt bad for her, carrying a baby largely alone. Then I remembered that she'd chosen this. She'd chosen to have an affair with my husband. She'd chosen to get pregnant. She'd chosen to lie to me. She'd chosen to humiliate me. I hope you're happy, I said as she walked to the door. I hope that baby was worth destroying a 15-year friendship and a 7-year marriage. She turned back at the door. For what it's worth, I am sorry for hurting you, but I'm not sorry for loving Derek, and I'm not sorry for having his baby. Then she was gone. After they both left my life, I started piecing together the timeline and the evidence I'd been too trusting to see. I went through Derek's phone records. He'd left his laptop behind, and I knew all his passwords. The number of texts between him and Melissa was staggering. Thousands of messages over 2 years. Many of them were deleted, but I could see the frequency. There were days when they texted each other more than Derek and I did. I looked at his location history. All those times he said he was working late or at the gym, he was at Melissa's apartment. Times when he said he was on work trips, he was with her. I found receipts for hotel rooms, dinners for two at romantic restaurants, gifts I'd never seen him give me. He'd taken her on dates while I thought he was at work events. I went through my own text history with Melissa. All those times she'd been there for me during my fertility struggles. She was sleeping with my husband. When she'd come over to comfort me after negative pregnancy tests, she was probably freshly back from being with him. When she'd sent me articles about fertility treatments, she was likely in bed with the man whose baby she was carrying. The level of deception was breathtaking. These weren't people who'd made one mistake. They'd constructed an elaborate web of lies over 2 years, coordinated their stories, covered for each other, and maintained the charade even when it meant watching me suffer. But the absolute worst thing I discovered was in Derek's email. He had a folder of messages between him and Melissa about my fertility struggles. They'd discussed my doctor's appointments, my cycle tracking, my emotional state. Melissa had told him things I'd shared with her in confidence, private fears and insecurities I'd only told my best friend, and Derek had used that information against me. He'd known which days I thought were my most fertile, and he'd make excuses to avoid being intimate with me on those days. He'd known how emotionally fragile I was becoming with each failed attempt, and he'd played into that, telling me we just needed to be patient. There was even an email where they'd discussed the prenatal vitamins. Melissa had suggested it, saying it might buy them time to figure out what to do. So this wasn't even just Derek's idea. They'd both conspired to sabotage my chances of getting pregnant. I printed out every email, every text I could recover, every receipt. I took it all to my lawyer. The lawyer assured me that this evidence would make the divorce proceedings much smoother. Infidelity is still a relevant factor in divorces in our state, especially when it involves this level of deception. The betrayal didn't just destroy my marriage and friendship. It sent shockwaves through both families. My parents were devastated. They'd loved Derek like a son, and they'd been close with Melissa too. My mother cried when I told her about the sabotaged vitamins, about how I'd been blaming myself for fertility issues that were engineered by the two people who claimed to love me. Derek's family was shocked too. His mother called me, sobbing and apologizing. "I never would have thought my son capable of this," she said. "I'm so sorry, Amy. You deserved so much better." Some of Derek's family sided with him, saying that these things happen and you can't help who you fall in love with. Those relatives got cut off immediately. I had no patience for anyone who thought what Derek and Melissa did was excusable. Melissa's family was divided. Her mother was apparently happy about the baby despite the circumstances. Finally, a grandchild. But Melissa's sister called me to apologize and say she'd cut off contact with Melissa. "What she did is unforgivable," she told me. "I'm so sorry you had to find out the way you did. Friends had to choose sides. Most chose Meanie. The ones who tried to stay neutral or suggested I should try to understand or move past it, for everyone's sake, lost me as a friend immediately. This wasn't a situation where understanding and forgiveness were appropriate options. The divorce was bitter and fast. I wanted out of the marriage as quickly as possible, and Derek didn't fight me on anything. Guilt, maybe, or just wanting it to be over. I got the house, most of our savings, and a favorable settlement. My lawyer was aggressive, using all the evidence of infidelity and the sabotage of our fertility attempts. Derek moved in with Melissa 2 weeks after I kicked him out. They were playing house together, preparing for their baby, living the life they'd apparently wanted all along. The baby was born about 6 weeks after the shower. A girl, 7 pounds 4 ounces, perfectly healthy. Melissa posted photos on social media, her holding the baby, Derek holding the baby, both of them looking tired but happy. The perfect little family. I didn't look at the photos for long. I blocked both of them on every platform. I didn't need to see their happiness when they'd built it on the ruins of my life. About 3 months after the baby was born, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Melissa. She was crying. "Amy, please, I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about," I said, about to hang up. "Derek left me," she sobbed. "He left us, the baby and me." I should have hung up. I should have felt satisfied that karma had caught up with them. But instead, I felt ... nothing. Just emptiness. What happened? I asked, not because I cared, but because I was curious. He said it's too hard, that being a father is overwhelming, that he made a mistake. Her voice was breaking. He moved out 2 weeks ago. He barely sees the baby. "Amy, I don't know what to do." The irony wasn't lost on me. Derek had sabotaged our attempts to have a baby together, had gotten Melissa pregnant on purpose, had claimed he wanted to be a father, just not with me. And now that he actually had the responsibility of fatherhood, he'd bailed. "I'm sorry you're going through that," I said, and I meant it in a distant, clinical way. "But I can't help you, Melissa. You made your choices. Now you have to live with them." "I know," she whispered. I just ... I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. "You were right. The baby wasn't worth losing you. Derek wasn't worth it either. I destroyed the best friendship I ever had for a man who didn't even stick around." "Yes, you did," I agreed. "And I hope you learn from it. But that doesn't mean we can go back to being friends. What you did was unforgivable." "I know," she said again. Then, after a pause, Are you doing okay?" "I'm doing better than okay," I told her. And it was true. "I'm building a life that's actually mine, with people who actually care about me. People who don't lie to me every day for 2 years." I hung up before she could respond. Through mutual friends who stayed in contact with both sides, I learned more about what happened after the baby came. Derek apparently hadn't been prepared for the reality of having a newborn. The sleepless nights, the constant crying, the diapers and feeding schedules. It wasn't the romanticized version of fatherhood he'd imagined. When the baby was about 6 weeks old, he told Melissa he needed a break and moved into his own apartment. He did pay child support. My aggressive divorce lawyer had made sure of that. But he only saw the baby sporadically, usually for a few hours on weekends. He wasn't the involved, doting father he'd apparently dreamed of being. Melissa, meanwhile, was struggling. Being a single mother was harder than she'd anticipated, especially without the support system she'd destroyed by having an affair with her best friend's husband. Her family helped some, but they were disappointed in her choices. Most of our mutual friends had sided with me and wanted nothing to do with her. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, Derek's baby, and discovered it wasn't what she actually needed. Derek tried to date other women, but word had gotten around about what he'd done. In our smallish community, Everyone knew the story of the baby shower reveal. Women wouldn't go out with him once they found out. Some even confronted him about it. "You're the guy who sabotaged his wife's fertility so he could knock up her best friend." One woman apparently said to him on a first date before walking out, "I heard about it through a friend of a friend, and I won't lie, it felt good to know he was facing consequences." The first year after the divorce was brutal. I went through all the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. I was in therapy twice a week, working through the trauma of such complete betrayal by the two people I trusted most. My therapist helped me understand that what happened wasn't about me being naive or stupid. Derek and Melissa were expert manipulators who'd constructed an elaborate lie over years. They'd had practiced lying to each other's partners before. Apparently, they'd both cheated in previous relationships. I'd never had a chance of seeing through their deception because they were professionals at it. "You trusted people who presented themselves as trustworthy," my therapist said. "That's not a character flaw. They exploited your trust, which is their failing, not yours." But the hardest part was forgiving myself. I kept replaying moments in my head, thinking about times I could have questioned things more, could have been more suspicious, could have protected myself better. It took a long time to accept that I'd done nothing wrong by trusting my husband and best friend. The fertility aspect was particularly hard to process. I'd spent 2 years thinking something was wrong with me, that my body was broken, that I was failing at something fundamental. Finding out that my husband had been actively sabotaging our attempts to conceive brought up a lot of complex emotions. I went to a fertility specialist after the divorce, wanting to know if there really was anything wrong with me or if Derek's sabotage was the only issue. The doctor ran tests and confirmed what I had been told years before: there was nothing wrong with me. I was perfectly capable of conceiving. "Do you want to preserve your eggs?" the doctor asked. "If you're thinking about having children in the future, you might want to consider it." I did preserve my eggs, not because I was sure I wanted children someday, but because I wanted the option. Derek had tried to take that choice away from me, and I was taken aback. Slowly, gradually, I rebuilt my life into something I actually recognized and valued. I threw myself into my work, got promoted twice in 18 months, and eventually started my own marketing consulting business. Turns out, when you're not being emotionally destroyed at home, you have a lot more energy for professional success. I moved to a new city about a year after the divorce. I needed a fresh start, away from places that reminded me of Derek and Melissa, away from people who knew our story. I found an apartment I loved, decorated it exactly how I wanted, and created a space that was entirely mine. I made new friends, real friends who didn't know anything about my past unless I chose to tell them. People who liked me for who I was, not because of shared history or old loyalties. It was refreshing to build connections based on who I was becoming rather than who I'd been. Dating was hard at first. I was terrified of trusting anyone again, of missing red flags, of being made a fool again. But I worked through it in therapy and eventually started putting myself out there. I dated casually for a while, nothing serious. Then, about 2 years after my divorce was finalized, I met James. He was kind, straightforward, and most importantly, honest. When he said he was somewhere, he was there. When he said something, he meant it. There was no hidden agenda, no lies, no manipulation. I was hypervigilant at first, looking for signs of deception, waiting for him to reveal himself as another liar. But he was consistent. He introduced me to his friends and family early on. He was open about his past relationships and what he'd learned from them. He understood when I needed reassurance or had moments of anxiety about trust. "I'm not Derek," he told me once, when I'd spiraled into worry after he'd been late getting back to me about plans. "I'm never going to lie to you or betray you, but I also understand that you need to see that through my actions over time, not just my words." He was right. And over Chimi, through consistent honesty and respect, he proved that not everyone was like Derek and Melissa. Some people actually meant what they said and valued trust. About 3 years after the baby shower, I was back in my old town visiting my parents for the holidays. I was doing some last-minute shopping at the mall when I literally ran into Melissa, or rather, her shopping cart ran into mine. We both froze. She had a toddler in the cart, Derek's daughter, obviously, with his dark hair and green eyes. The little girl was adorable, babbling happily and playing with a stuffed animal. "Amy," Melissa said, her voice quiet. "Hi." "Hi," I replied, not sure what else to say. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. She looked older, tired. Being a single mother had clearly taken its toll. "She's beautiful," I said, gesturing to the little girl, because it felt weird not to acknowledge her. "Thank you," Melissa said. Then, hesitantly, "How are you doing?" "I'm good. Really good. Actually, I'm engaged. Living in Portland. Running my own business." Something flickered across her face. Maybe jealousy, maybe regret. That's great. I'm happy for you. How are you?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "Managing," she said with a tired smile. "Derek's not really involved. It's just me and Lily. But we're okay." The little girl, Lily, chose that moment to throw her stuffed animal out of the cart. I picked it up and handed it back to her. She smiled at me, and I felt a pang of ... something. Not quite sadness, but something adjacent to it. This child was innocent in all of this. She didn't ask to be born from an affair, to have a father who'd abandoned her, to be the physical evidence of betrayal. She was just a kid who needed love and stability. "I really am sorry," Melissa said suddenly. "I know I've said it before, and I know it doesn't change anything. But I want you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did. I lost the best friend I ever had. And for what? A man who bailed the second things got hard. I destroyed everything for nothing. I looked hot. She really looked at her. She was genuinely remorseful. It was written all over her face, in the slump of her shoulders, in the exhaustion in her eyes. But remorse doesn't erase the past. I hope you've learned from it," I said finally. "And I hope you're a good mother to her. She deserves better than to grow up with the consequences of her parents' mistakes." "I'm trying," Melissa said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm really trying to be better than I was." "That's all anyone can do," I said. We said goodbye, and I walked away. I didn't feel angry anymore, or hurt, or betrayed. I felt ... nothing. She was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd made terrible choices that had hurt me, but ultimately led me to a better life. I called James from my car and told him about the encounter. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Honestly, nothing. She's not part of my life anymore. What she did shaped who I became, but she doesn't define me. That's growth," he said. "I'm proud of you." And I was proud of me too. Looking back on everything, the fertility struggles, the affair, the betrayal, the baby shower revelation, the aftermath, I can see clearly now what I couldn't see then. Derek and Melissa were broken people who broke other people. They were selfish and cowardly, unable to be honest about what they wanted, willing to destroy someone else's life rather than face their own truths. That's not love. That's not even desire. That's just weakness. The fertility sabotage was the cruelest part because it played on my deepest insecurity and made me blame myself for something that was never my fault. It was psychological torture disguised as support. Every time Derek held me while I cried about another failed pregnancy attempt, he knew he was part of the reason it had failed. That level of betrayal is almost incomprehensible to me. The baby shower reveal was intentionally cruel. Melissa could have told me privately. She could have given me dignity in discovering the truth. Instead, she chose public humiliation because I think she wanted me to hurt the way she'd been hurting living in the shadows of Derek's life. Being the secret, never being chosen first. She wanted to take something from me the way she felt I'd taken something from her by being Derek's wife. But here's what I've learned. People who hurt you on purpose are telling you exactly who they are. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Derek showed me he was a liar and a manipulator. Melissa showed me she was jealous and cruel, and I finally believed him and removed him from my life completely. I'm 35 now, married to James for almost a year, and we're talking about starting a family. It's terrifying given my history, but my therapist has helped me work through the trauma around pregnancy and fertility. Your body isn't broken, she reminds me. What was broken was your trust in the people around you. You can trust James, you can trust yourself, and you can trust that this time is different. She's right. This time is different. James and I have been to preconception counseling together. We've talked about our fears and hopes. We've made plans for how we'll support each other through the process. And most importantly, we've built a foundation of honesty and communication that Derek and I never had. I don't think about Derek and Melissa often anymore. They're like characters from a book I read once. I remember the story, but it doesn't affect me emotionally anymore. Sometimes I wonder how little Lily is doing. If Derek ever stepped up to be a real father to her, if Melissa found the support and happiness she was looking for. But mostly, I don't wonder. Their lives are no longer my concern. What I do think about is how far I've come. The woman who stood at that baby shower, devastated and humiliated, barely survived that day. But she did survive. She rebuilt. She became stronger, wiser, more discerning about who she let into her life. I'm grateful for the friends who stood by me, for my family who supported me unconditionally, for my therapist who helped me process the trauma, and for James who showed me that healthy, honest love actually exists. I'm even, in a strange way, grateful for the experience itself. Not for the pain. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but for what it taught me about my own strength and resilience. I learned that I could survive something I thought would destroy me. I learned that betrayal by the people you trust most is survivable. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Trust your instincts, but don't blame yourself when people you love betray that trust. I've talked to other people who've been through similar betrayals, and we all say the same thing. I should have known. The signs were there. But that's not fair to ourselves. The signs are only obvious in hindsight. When you're in it, when you trust people completely, you interpret everything through that lens of trust. Derek telling me he was working late. I believed him because I trusted him. Melissa being involved in our lives constantly. I thought she was a good friend because I trusted her. The sabotaged vitamins, the canceled plans, the secretive phone calls, all of it could be explained away because I had no reason to suspect them. The failure wasn't in my trust. The failure was in their betrayal of that trust. If you're going through something similar, if someone you love has betrayed you, if you feel like your whole life was a lie, please know that it gets better. It doesn't feel like it will. In those early days and weeks and months, it feels like you'll never be okay again. But you'll rebuild, you'll become stronger, you'll learn to trust again, carefully and wisely. You'll create a life that's authentically yours, built on truth rather than lies. And one day, you'll realize that the person who betrayed you no longer has power over your emotions or your story. They're just a chapter in your book, not the whole story. And you get to write the rest of it however you want. There's one question I still think about sometimes, though. Would I want to know if I could go back in time? If someone had come to me 3 years into my marriage and said, Derek and Melissa are having an affair and she's going to get pregnant with his baby, would I have wanted to know? Would it have been better to find out earlier, to waste less time in a fraudulent marriage? Or was the timing, as horrible as it was, actually a gift? Because here's the thing. If I'd found out earlier, I might have tried to save the marriage. I might have gone to couples counseling with Derek, might have believed his apologies and promises to change. I might have given him another chance and another, wasting years trying to fix something that was fundamentally broken. The baby shower revelation was so public and so humiliating that there was no coming back from it. There was no way to rationalize it or forgive it or move past it. It was final and absolute. And maybe that's what I needed, a clean break that left no room for doubt or second guessing. So what I want to know earlier? I honestly don't know, but I do know that however it happened, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad the truth came out. I'm glad I'm not still living in that lie. So here's my question for all of you. If you found out your partner and your best friend had been betraying you for years, would you want to know publicly or privately? And do you think there's ever a good way to find out devastating news like this? Or is it all just different shades of terrible? Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you've been through something similar, I'm sending you strength. You're not alone, and you will get through this.